Tonight, someone you love will die. Not tonight, maybe. Not soon, hopefully. But one day, the moment will come and you will have to decide what to do with the body. And here is the strange part. Every ritual you perform, every flower you place, every word you say over a grave, none of it came from religion. None of it came from culture. It came from something far older. Something your ancestors were doing long before language existed. The real story of what humans did when someone died is not what you think. And once you hear it, you will never look at a funeral the same way again. Here is what most people assume. Ancient humans were brutal. Survival was everything. When someone died, the tribe moved on. The body was left behind. Grief was a luxury no one could afford. That is the story, and it is almost entirely wrong. The oldest known burial site on Earth sits in a cave in South Africa called the Naledi Chamber. Inside it, researchers found the remains of at least 15 individuals of a species called Homo naledi. These were not Homo sapiens. They had brains roughly 1/3 the size of yours. And yet, the bodies were deliberately placed deep inside a cave system so complex, so dark, so difficult to navigate that scientists spent years debating how they got there. Paleoanthropologist Lee Berger, who led the excavation team, concluded that the only plausible explanation was that Homo naledi carried their dead into the cave on purpose. Not for food, not for any practical reason. They went through enormous effort to place the dead somewhere specific. Something about death mattered to them, and their brains were barely larger than a chimpanzee's. This is the first thing that should stop you cold. The impulse to do something with the dead did not begin with civilization. It did not begin with religion. It began before your species existed. Now go forward in time. Not far. About 130,000 years ago, a Neanderthal child died in what is now Iraq, in a cave called Shanidar. When archaeologist Ralph Selecki excavated the site in the 1950s, he found something extraordinary around the remains. Pollen. Enormous quantities of pollen from wildflowers, grape hyacinth, groundsel, ephedra, flowers that had to be intentionally gathered and placed around the body. Selecki concluded the Neanderthals had buried their dead with flowers. With care, with what looked, unmistakably, like grief. Later researchers debated his findings. Some argued the pollen could have been carried in by animals or wind. The debate still continues. But what no one debates is this. Neanderthals buried their dead. Deliberately. In graves. With objects. There is too much evidence across too many sites for that to be an accident. They arranged bodies. They placed tools beside them. They removed flesh from some bones in ways that suggest ritualistic processing rather than consumption for survival. And here is the thing that should unsettle you. Neanderthals are not your ancestors. They are your cousins. A separate lineage. Which means the impulse to honor the dead did not evolve once, in one place, in one branch of the human family. It evolved independently, in at least 2 separate species, on its own. Death rituals are not a cultural invention. They are something closer to a biological inevitability. So what exactly did your direct ancestors, early Homo sapiens, do? Around 100,000 years ago, at a site called Kafze in Israel, researchers found the oldest confirmed Homo sapiens burials. Bodies placed in pits, red ochre pigment sprinkled over the remains. A child buried with the antlers of a deer resting across its body. The antlers were too large, too heavy, too deliberately placed to be anything other than intentional. Someone chose those antlers. Someone placed them there. Someone thought about what this child deserved in death. Red ochre appears again and again at burial sites across the ancient world. It is one of the most consistent threads running through early human mortuary practice. Researchers, including Francesco De Rico, have argued that ochre's blood-red color connected it symbolically to life, to blood, to the idea that something of the person persisted even after the body stopped. They were not just disposing of the dead. They were performing something, saying something that had no words yet, because language as you know it may not have fully existed. Now here is where it gets stranger. Not all ancient humans buried the dead. Some did something else entirely. Sky burial, excarnation, the deliberate exposure of a body to birds and the elements so that the flesh is consumed and the bones are left clean. This practice is ancient. It still exists today in parts of Tibet and among certain indigenous communities, but its roots go back tens of thousands of years. At sites in Europe and the Middle East, researchers have found human bones that show cut marks, careful, deliberate cut marks, in places and patterns inconsistent with butchery for food. The marks follow the contours of muscle groups. They suggest the flesh was removed methodically, carefully as a ritual act. The bones were then kept, curated, passed among the living. Your ancestors, in some cases, kept pieces of their dead. At Cueva de los Aviones in Spain, researchers found perforated shells that were used as ornaments, dated to over 115,000 years ago. At other sites, human skulls were found that had been modified. Edges smoothed, bases removed, turned into cups or bowls. Whether this was an act of reverence or something else, no one can say with certainty. But the consistency of the practice across cultures and continents suggests it was not random. The dead were not discarded. They were transformed, incorporated. The boundary between the living and the dead was not a wall. It was a conversation. Archaeologist Lambros Malafouris has argued that these practices reveal something fundamental about early human cognition. The act of caring for the dead required something enormous. The ability to imagine that a person who was no longer present still mattered, that they still had a status, that their body, even emptied of life, carried meaning. This is not a simple cognitive operation. It requires a theory of mind. It requires the ability to hold an abstract concept of personhood that extends beyond physical presence. The presence of death rituals, Malafouris argues, may be one of the clearest windows into the moment human consciousness became what it is today. You grieve because your brain can imagine a world where the person still exists, and the pain comes from the gap between that imagined world and the real one. Your Neanderthal cousins felt that gap. Homo naledi, with a third of your brain, may have felt it too. Grief is not weakness. It is the price of being the kind of mind that can love something that is not physically present. There is one more thing. Across every culture anthropologists have studied, across every time period, across every continent, one behavior appears with remarkable consistency. The living talk to the dead. Not in an organized religious context, spontaneously. A widow speaks to her husband's photograph. A father visits a grave and says out loud the things he never said while the person was alive. A child whispers something to a parent who cannot hear. This behavior is so universal, so consistent, that psychologist Edith Steffen has studied it extensively and concluded it is not pathological. It is not denial. It is a normal part of human grief that modern Western culture has incorrectly pathologized. Indigenous cultures around the world never needed a study to tell them this. They built entire cosmologies around the assumption that the dead remain present, remain accessible, remain part of the community. Your ancestors did not leave their dead behind when they moved camp. They carried them. They marked the place. They came back. They spoke. The earliest known ritual behavior in the human record is not warfare. It is not religion. It is not art. It is care for the dead. Think about what that means. The first thing that made you human, the first behavior that separated you from every other creature on earth, was the refusal to let someone disappear without acknowledgement. The first human act was a funeral, not a battle, not a feast, a gathering around a body to say, this person was here, and it mattered. Tonight, when someone you love dies, not tonight, maybe, not soon, hopefully, and you find yourself standing over a grave, placing a flower, saying something out loud to someone who cannot answer, you are not following a tradition. You are not obeying a religion. You are doing what your ancestors did in the dark of a cave 130,000 years ago. You are doing what a small-brained hominin did in a cave so deep no light ever reached it. You are doing the oldest human thing there is. You are refusing to let someone disappear.